Welcome back to More Than Money. I'm your host, Patrick Thompson, and today we'll be talking about Web3, Federal Reserve digital currencies, and stablecoins with Paul Kupiec, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. But before we begin, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any episodes of More Than Money on the CoinGeek channel. After you like and subscribe, remember to enjoy the episode. I'm your host, Patrick Thompson, and you're watching More Than Money. So, Paul, for those who don't know, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, my name's Paul Kupiec. I'm a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. My background, PhD in economics in the last millennium. Started out teaching at NC State University finance, moved to the Federal Reserve Board where I worked for a dozen years for Alan Greenspan, part of the time directly. Left there, went to Wall Street, JP Morgan for a while. Worked in risk management. I built a lot of risk management models. Worked in Freddie Mac for a few years where I built mortgage risk management models. Then went to the IMF where I did international banking, and then spent a decade at the FDIC where I was the head of the Center for Financial Research, and I was also the chairman of the Basel Research Task Force, Basel Bank Supervision. So I have a big background long background in regulation, banking regulation, securities market issues, financial markets.
And that's something I really appreciate about you, right? Because you recently wrote an article that touched on Web3 and stablecoins, as well as how what many people would call the traditional financial system. I still call it banking and finance, right? Because this DeFi stuff is kind of new, but you really understand the ins and outs of it, the plumbing and how it works. And I think when a lot of blockchain and crypto people come to this space, they have what could be potentially great ideas, but they don't necessarily have that background in banking and finance to know how these things really work. So
I've spent a fair bit of time trying to understand how stablecoins, crypto, the crypto world and the blockchain fits into the traditional payment system. My takeaway is distributed ledgers, public distributed ledgers are just a new way to clear and settle payments. There are many systems already in place, many of them actually, some run by the Federal Reserve, some run by the card companies, some run by the banks. They use different techniques than the public distributed ledger. The distributed ledger is just kind of the newest way that one might clear and settle the transfer of value, the transfer of some kind of value, money, be it a stable coin, it could be a bank deposit, could be lots of things. So to me, that's the innovation, that's the value.
And, in the recent article you wrote, I'm sure we'll put a link in the comments or in the description so people can get a better understanding and some background. But something you use the word Federal Reserve digital currency. And I'm wondering, do you view the FRDC as something different than a CBDC, which is a central bank digital currency, or a stablecoin, which many people would probably say is like a private offering from, its own entity corporation?
FRDC is just the Federal Reserve version of a central bank digital currency. Instead of saying a Federal Reserve CDDC, I just call it a Federal Reserve digital currency. So we already have Federal Reserve digital currency in the form of reserves. Bank reserves at the Federal Reserve are digital currency. They're a liability of the Fed, so they already exist. What the Fed is exploring is whether it should or could create a digital currency that was available to the public at large. So right now, you have to be a bank or a specialized institution. Examples of specialized institutions that aren't banks, like Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, they can have accounts at the Federal Reserve and they can hold Federal Reserve digital currency. Normal individuals cannot. You have to be a bank or one of the few recognized specialized institutions, and then you can own and settle over the Fed system with Fed digital currency, which we call reserves, bank reserves. Federal funds the federal funds market is a market in reserves. The Fed is currently exploring now under the executive order that the administration put out, whether they should create a digital currency that the public can hold directly or indirectly through banks, and what are the benefits and risks of that. So that's sort of now going on sort of big time because of the president's executive order.
So when it comes to like the administration and lawmakers, do they see there being any sort of risk involved with the emergence of something like a stable coin, something like a FRDC, opposed to the banking system that's in place today? Do they see that the implementation of something new would, I guess, pose some risks to the current system that we have?
I think there are different camps. I think there are some in Congress and some in the administration that do see private stable coins as a risk to the financial system, and then there are a host of others who see it as an innovation and want to create laws or regulations that enable them to grow and for the public to have confidence in them. So I think it's split on the Hill. I mean, I can point to you, and I might have quoted it in early articles about specific senators who are very much against private stablecoins. Now, Federal Reserve digital currency isn't likely to be a substitute for private stablecoins in the sense that Federal Reserve digital currency, one, it's a liability of the Federal Reserve Bank, so it's absolutely risk-free. I mean, the Fed can always print money, whereas a private stablecoin can have risk. A private stablecoin may never hold its dollar value if it's a dollar stablecoin. The sponsor has to have either reserves or some algorithmic program or something to maintain the dollar, and there'd be no guarantee that it would maintain its value, as we've seen over the last week with some of the algorithmic stablecoins. So there's risk in a private stablecoin. In a Federal Reserve digital currency, it would be riskless. The other thing is the Federal Reserve digital currency is unlikely to trade on a public distributed ledger. Private stablecoins right now, all of them trade on either some kind of public distributed ledger, and there's new versions of that coming out with the proof of stake versus proof of work. The Fed would be unlikely to, as far as I know right now, and I'm pretty much up to date, having just coming from a conference with the people at the Fed working on this. It's unlikely that the Fed would ever issue a currency that would clear and settle on a public distributed ledger. They would build their own payment system. They would control it, so the transactions would all clear and settle through the Federal Reserve. That's my best guess right now.
What are some of the reasons that an entity like the Fed would want to maintain its own ledger versus, I think what a lot of blockchain crypto enthusiasts always vouch for and preach for is a public ledger?
It's clear that there are many in the crypto world that they sort of correlate public ledger with privacy and things like that. I mean, I'm no expert on this now, but it seems like, all the transactions in the blockchain are, you can follow them all from the first primary block. And it seems like the government has gotten way better at tracking wallets and blocks and things like that. So I'm not sure that the blockchain gives you the anonymity that some people, believe. It looks like the government's gotten better at tracking these things down with some recent recoveries of some of the crypto heists. I'm not so knowledgeable about how they do those techniques, but it seems like they've been successful, and some of the people that know more than me about it claim they're better at it. There are ways to anonymize some of these transactions. I think people are working on ways where you can have some kind of code that you get approved to be a legitimate user of currency, and then you have some anonymized key or something that if you deal with a crypto exchange or a bank or anybody else, you don't have to tell them necessarily who you are. You just have to share this key that says you're okay, you're legal, you're a good, that you acquired your crypto and you're using it for legal things. I mean, I think there are ways that are coming about that that may make some of these transactions that it may preserve privacy in a way that may be more acceptable, or more the crypto folks that are really focused on privacy may be okay with, and that may allow transactions to go through intermediaries. They may be happier with that. But I mean, that's a whole area I really still need to look into and learn more about.
And I want to switch gears a little bit and touch on some of the Web3 stuff that you covered in the article. So for those who don't know, how would you describe Web3?
Well, I think people describe Web3 as the Internet of Things. So as we go through the future, lots of appliances and items and things that we use day to day are going to be connected to the internet, like now thermostats are. As I did in the recent article, imagine your refrigerator's connected to the internet. It knows what's inside the refrigerator. It can optically scan, and you give it a list that says, I always want these items there. And when things run low, it automatically orders from a grocery store and it's delivered to your door. The refrigerator's got to pay for something, got to pay for it somehow. The people that design contracts these days think about blockchain, and they think about paying for it with stable coins that clear and settle on the blockchain. These are smart contracts. The smart contracts are code built into the appliances, the machines, other things we need. Smart contracts could replace certain fiduciary things, like in a bank letter of credit. A bank will you'll do some international trade deal where you say you buy some products abroad, and the person abroad doesn't know you, and they're not going to take your personal check because they don't know who you are. So you go to a bank. You go to a bank that's recognized, and you buy a letter of credit from the bank. So you give the bank money, and the bank steps in and agrees to provide payment once it knows the goods are in process and it's shipping to you. So the bank substitutes its good name and credit for your good name and credit, because the counterparty you're buying things from doesn't know or trust you, but they know or trust the bank. And so there'll be some contingency, like the goods will have to be put on the ship with a bill of lading, and then that would allow the bank to make payment. That could be replaced with a smart contract, as long as you wouldn't have to have an individual certify that was on a ship. It could be on the internet where that was done, and you wouldn't need people involved. And so that could take a lot of things like that. You could take fiduciary duties out, and it could be done more or less automatically on the internet if you could verify certain things. So smart contracts are potentially, a pretty important innovation as the web progresses, as the things the machines and appliances we use, get smarter and they're connected to the web. And right now, smart contracts use pretty much stable coins and things that trade on the blockchain to money. Now, I don't personally understand why you couldn't use a credit card or a debit card to pay that. That remains to be seen. But right now, those that are innovating don't do things that way. And so I think there's value to having a blockchain type payment system to the extent that's needed for smart contracts. It may be the case that there's innovations in debit or credit cards and interfaces where you could use those things to pay too. So I think that all hasn't been quite settled yet.
And something I wonder is, do you think down the road there's going to need to be consensus on maybe what stablecoin is the currency used on Web3 platforms, or if it is going to be a central bank digital currency? And like where I'm kind of going with this is that all the different stablecoins almost remind me of like wildcat banking, that lesson in history where everybody has their different currency. And, if I'm in the Philadelphia area and you're in the DC area, but you're not taking my Philadelphia reserve note, like, we have a bit of a problem when it comes to trade and transactions.
Yeah, it's interoperability. I think the value will be in a standardized blockchain where What'll happen in the future is, well, right now, I mean, historically, lots of things look like stable coins existed way into the past. It's kind of like a traveler's check or a letter of credit. And, there are many banks you could go to get a letter of credit or a traveler's check, but they all clear and pay payments transacted over the same kind of payment system. Right now, it's the banking payment system. So you could, in the future, I would think there should be sort of one blockchain somehow managed where, people can invent their own stable coin. You can go to whatever stable coin you want to buy a private stable coin, but it would trade and clear on one network. So we wouldn't have this problem like if there's a Philadelphia one and a DC one that you can't use the same network otherwise you'd have to go through a crypto exchange, and that's extra costs and buy it all. I mean, it'd be nice if you could trade them all on the same blockchain. And that's kind of the way that's my prediction about the way the world goes, that there'll be sort of a standardized type of public distributed ledger. My guess, it's got to be more energy efficient than the one that drives Bitcoin. So I'm guessing, it's some new version of secure proof of stake or something like that, where, trusted financial institutions, bid to clear and settle these things. So there's competition. I'm thinking that seems to me, that's the way credit card interchange has developed, the way debit card interchange has developed over time. I'm kind of thinking that's the way stable coins will go over time. And then you'll be able to use your bank deposits over this network and other things. So I suspect that's the way the world will go. And if public ledgers are the key innovation, then you could use smart contracts and other things over that same network.
So two questions popped in my head, and we'll go one by one with them. So one, what kind of specs would a blockchain need to be able to handle the sort of volumes and have the sort of depth that the current financial system has? Because the problem that something like a BTC runs into today or an Ethereum runs into today is that they can only handle maybe 5 to 15 transactions per second. And when we're talking about a global scale of the payment system, that's just not going to cut it.
Yeah, well, it would be, first of all, it'd be a dollar-based stable coin that would probably be, that's the way it would start. I don't know if it would be any fiat. You'd have to still have exchange rates and other things. So I think it would be kind of a dollar-based system. I think some of the systems right now are going to proof of stake to solve some of these problems. If you had really the financial institutions big time getting into this network, I mean, that's a lot of resources to solve these kind of problems, and potentially a lot of computing power too. And if you have proof of stake, then you don't have thousands and thousands of people trying to solve the same problem. You have a random collection, each block trying to bidding to solve this problem. So I think it remains to be seen. I'm not a blockchain expert at that level by any means, but we're gonna get better at this, and technology improves all the time, and there are a lot of smart people out there that can write code like this.
Especially when you throw some money at the problem, right?
Oh yeah.
So the second part of my question was, and we touched on it a little bit, is that the energy consumption of proof of work blockchain seems to be a big issue that is becoming a bigger and bigger problem globally, where we have legislators addressing it in all sorts of different ways, proposing proof of work mining bans. Do you see there being a sort of shift away from this proof of work model and more people adopting proof of stake? Or is there a very big interest in maybe some renewable or green energy sources for proof of work blockchain mining?
I mean, I think from what I know, I think proof of work blockchain is too energy intensive. Even if you had renewables, it's still using energy that could have been used for something else. So to the extent that you could do something more energy efficient, that's probably got to be the way of the future. Now, how quickly that comes about, I don't know. Proof of stake seems like the candidate right now. The network, some of the coins are going to, there may be improvements on that. They're I'm sure there are various versions of that, and some are, more secure, better than that. Now, I mean, I was talking to some folks at a conference recently, and one of them is a person that's a cybersecurity expert, and I asked him. I said, "Are these public distributed ledgers, are they really secure?" And he seemed to suggest that ex post you can find out where things go, but ex ante there could be cyber risks with these kind of things. And I mean, we've seen all kinds of heists and stuff over time. So you got to solve some of these problems too, so people have confidence in the systems and that. So that could be an impediment for this, moving forward, for people to trust it as their main means of transaction. Whereas right now, banks usually don't get hacked and lose depositors' money. At least that hasn't, at least not in the news that I'm aware of. So there's some issues there that have to get sorted through too.
So speaking of the obstacles, and I'm just going to round this out with two questions because I'm conscious of our time. What obstacles do you think lay in the way of, we primarily talked about stablecoins, so let's cover that, but as well as Web3, what risks and obstacles will they need to come up with solutions for and overcome before it is this thing that more people, and most importantly, enterprises and economies feel comfortable with?
What obstacles have to be overcome? I think there needs to be legislation that builds a framework for private stablecoins, for crypto assets, for firms that create smart contracts and codes. All these things need clarification so that we, right now, DAOs, they don't have, they're businesses. That's what we think about, but they don't have a management, they don't have a balance sheet, they don't have an income statement. The law doesn't exactly know how to deal with these. Like corporations are treated in law like people. They're a person for lots of reasons. So there's some they've got a balance sheet, they've got a management. If something goes wrong with a corporation, there's something to sue, something to hold accountable. DAOs, who do you hold accountable if it's just computer code? I mean, I think Wyoming is working on some law that recognizes them as LLCs. I think in Congress there are folks that are also working on things like that. But there's all kinds of things that need to be clarified in law and regulations, and so that people can have confidence. Coinbase, you saw the release earlier this week that said that the holders, their accounts aren't really segregated, and if Coinbase were to get in trouble, then they might be just general. You might lose your crypto because you're a general creditor in a bankruptcy. Well, that's got to be fixed. I mean, we have to. Financial institutions regulations have been around for a long time. They faced these problems in their early days. Laws were put in place where accounts have to be segregated so that if the firm that holds your stocks goes bankrupt, you get your stocks back. They don't become. So all these things, the financial industry faced this, over 100 years, and laws and regulations were put in place to protect people, to clarify, who had what responsibilities. Crypto go through the same, evolution. It's new. There's a lot of things people don't understand and have to figure out, but they will. I mean, if it's here to stay and it is a valuable innovation, then we're going to have to figure out a way, to make it work, to make it fit in with the laws and regulations. So that's it.
And I think the answer you just gave might answer my next question, actually. But something I like to close up with is, if you had a sort of general takeaway that you'd want the audience to know, or maybe anybody who's just getting interested in blockchain and digital assets, stablecoins, what would you want that general takeaway to be?
I don't know if I have a general takeaway. It's new. It may be an important innovation. There, just like any new technology, there may be coins that are not a good idea to put your money into. There's always they're risky. Some of them are risky. Some of them are safer. Do your homework. Know what you're getting into. Be careful. Be careful where you put your money. That's all. I don't.
No, I think that's a really good message, especially with the events that we've seen unfold over the past few days with the UST stablecoin losing its peg, and it kind of created this death spiral because that was the way it was programmed to work. I think it'd be good if more retail investors and consumers, even institutional investors, accredited investors, just did more due diligence and really knew what was going on and what they were getting into before they, put a lot of money somewhere.
Yeah, and I suspect the events of the past week will generate more work in the administration and in Congress to address some of these issues and try to build in protections and clarify some of the laws and regulations. I think it'll make people work a little harder, a little quicker.
I agree. Well, Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on here and share some of your insights with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Patrick, and have a good day and a good weekend.
I hope you enjoyed all of the insight that Paul shared with us about Web3. I'd like to take a second to look at the key takeaways from our conversation. Number 1, distributed ledgers do a great job at clearing and settling payments. Number 2, there needs to be interoperability between chains, otherwise we will have inefficiencies similar to those in the wildcat banking era. And number 3, the industry needs legislation and clarity. Consumers need greater protection from Web3 entities. Thanks for tuning in to learn more about blockchain-based stablecoin economies. I'm your host, Patrick Thompson, and I hope to see you back for the next episode of More Than Money.
Right now, millions are building the Internet of Value. But the best version of this inevitable future isn't possible unless the data that fuels it can be exchanged securely and with confidence. This is a critical moment in defining our shared future. That's why nChain offers the tools to protect the data we'll need to build that future. The Internet of Value works because we do. Join us in securing the tomorrow we all share. nChain. Data without question.
Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin wallet, blockchain, stablecoins, MetaNet, the evolution of money. Everybody is talking about Bitcoin today, but what exactly is it? Learn the basics from experts. Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of More Than Money. If you are interested in watching more from the show, click here. Or to see other great CoinGeek content, click here. Remember to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a future show on the CoinGeek channel.